Dear viewers, and welcome to a new edition of our program Africa Today. In today's edition, we are going to talk about Egypt's leading North Africa in 2022 foreign direct investment inflows with 11.4 billion US dollar according to the UNCTAD. And we'll start our episode with a report from Sudan, where Egypt braces for refugees influx as the fighting worsens in Sudan's humanitarian crisis, while the number of Sudanese seeking refuge has risen rapidly owing to conflict, political instability and economic stagnation. Egypt has long been a forever destination among the refugee influx, fleeing their countries and fleeing the conflict, persecution and economic woes in countries across the Middle East and Africa, either as place of refuge or a step for the route to Europe. More details in the following story.
Egypt has long been a favored destination among refugees fleeing conflict, persecution, and economic woes in countries across the Middle East and East Africa, either as a place of refugee or a stopover en route to Europe. Now, with violence and chaos engulfing its southern neighbor, Sudan, authorities in Cairo are braced for a fresh wave of refugees in search of safety, employment, and functioning health services. According to a report in the New York Times, more than 15,000 Sudanese have fled the Darfur region into neighboring Chad. On Sunday, 436 Egyptians were successfully evacuated from Sudan via land. Ahmed Abu Zaid, spokesperson for the Foreign Ministry, said that evacuations would continue in order to ensure the safe and sound return of all Egyptian citizens. Already home to a Sudanese community estimated at 4 million, Egypt offers few of the jobs that Sudanese migrants have traditionally sought in the Gulf region, but is considered as easier and often more familiar destination. Due to its geographical proximity and shared history, young Sudanese can travel to Egypt cheaply to search for work, while families can seek healthcare, education for their children, and perhaps a stable life. Although there are no publicly available figures to show recent migration trends from Sudan to Egypt, authorities say that numbers had been on the rise since 2019, when an uprising led to the overthrow of former Sudanese leader Omar al-Bashir. According to Naila Gaber, chair of the National Coordinating Committee for Combating and Preventing Illegal Migration and Trafficking, Egypt is home to about 300,000 registered refugees.
The UNICEF warns that a spike in conflict and displacement in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo is actually pushing the children into the worst cholera crisis since 2017.
A spike in conflict and displacement in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo is pushing children into the worst cholera crisis since 2017. The UNICEF warned that across the country there have been at least 31,342 suspected or confirmed cholera cases and 230 deaths in the first 7 months of 2023. Many of them are children. The worst affected province, North Kivu, has seen more than 21,400 confirmed or suspected cases, including more than 8,000 children under 5 years, according to the Ministry of Public Health. This compares to 5,120 total cases in all of 2022 and 1,200 for children under 5. The size of cholera outbreak and the devastation it threatens should ring alarm bells. In a similar situation, 2017, cholera expanded to the entire country, including the capital city, Kinshasa, leading to almost 55,000 cases and more than 1,100 deaths. The DRC, which shoulders the worst displacement crisis in Africa and among the worst globally, with more than 6.3 million displaced people across the country, has seen more than 1.5 million people, including over 800,000 children displaced in North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri provinces since January 2023.
And Chinese leader Xi Jinping said China will release initiatives and plans on supporting Africa on industrialization, agricultural modernization, as well as education.
South African President Ramaphosa and China's leader Xi Jinping, who chaired a China-Africa roundtable in Johannesburg on the sidelines of the BRICS summit. The BRICS bloc of developing economies include Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Xi praised the joint statement between China and Africa. He said that it reflects the firm support on African integration and will send strong voice to the international community for solidarity and cooperation between China and Africa on international affairs and justice. The Chinese leader said China will release initiatives and plans on supporting Africa on industrialization, agriculture modernization, and education. He said that they are convinced that solid African integration and modernization of China and Africa will provide new engines to the world economic growth and will contribute positive energy to the international fairness and justice. Meanwhile, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Argentina, and Ethiopia have been invited to join the BRICS economic bloc. The BRICS group of emerging economies have agreed to invite Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Ethiopia, the United Arab Emirates to join the bloc. South African President Ramaphosa said on the final day of the group's 15th Summit of Head of States and Government in Johannesburg that they have reached an agreement on the BRICS expansion process. 3 of the group's other leaders are attending the summit and were with Ramaphosa for the announcement, including Brazilian President. The bloc was formed in 2009 by Brazil, Russia, India, and China. South Africa joined the group 1 year later. The bloc represents around 40% of the world's population and contributes more than a quarter of the global GDP.
Our dear viewers, to shed more light on Egypt ranked as the first in the foreign direct investment in 2022, we are very much delighted to be joined over the phone by Ambassador Suad Chalabi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Ambassador Chalabi, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Egypt ranked the first in North Africa for foreign direct investment inflows in 2022, receiving a total of 11.4 billion US dollar, the highest amount since the year 2017. What is the significance of such numbers reached by Egypt in 2022, Ambassador
Chalabi? Egypt has been doing very well in the rate of growth and also in diversification of its resources. And especially when we have joined many regional economic groups, like the last one which we joined, the BRICS. Of course, our problems, internal problems, were due to several international problems or global problems like the COVID or the Ukraine war, Russian war. But in general, Egypt has been doing very well, especially in the developmental, in the rate of growth, because in all the branches of the economy, it has proved to be doing better than a few years ago.
Yes, Ambassador Chalabi, actually recently Egypt has implemented the various measures aimed at enhancing its investment climate, addressing the shortages of the US dollar in the local market and attracting more foreign direct investment. How do you see these measures?
The foreign direct investment is very important for Egyptian economy. That is why it has been the growth opportunities in Egypt has been attracting many foreign direct investments. And, the investments of Egypt into projects, whether it is in the Nile Valley or in the land reclamation or irrigation, all of the agricultural projects that has been developed has been financed by foreign direct investments, especially also in the trade and in the industrial sector. So the economic situation of Egypt has developed a lot because of the integration, economic integration in Africa with EU, with the establishment of the different investment opportunities, investment funds, and the guarantees that are given to the foreigners in Egypt in order to invest in different sectors.
Indeed. Ambassador, as you have kindly mentioned that Egypt did join the BRICS recently, the significance of Egypt joining these regional and international blocs for the Egyptian investment and the Egyptian economy in general?
This, of course, it's a new market. It's a new developing for developing countries, and especially those countries that have joined lately are Ethiopia, Iran, and Egypt, and also Argentina. These countries have already been in different regional economic integration. So to increase and to widen the scope of the Egyptian exports to these markets is very important. And also to use local currencies of these markets is also a new initiative that has been introduced by being members of BRICS. So depending on the dollar or taking, or we cannot depend on other currencies and leave, but we have to depend also on the dollar and the other currencies. That means that we will use other currencies in dealing with India, with China, with Russia, in our exports and imports. And that will give us a wider range of markets.
Of course.
And of course, to receive more investments in the different fields that we are missing.
Finally, Ambassador Chalabi, how Africa's free trade area is an opportunity for recovery and development in the whole continent?
This is, of course, it is very important, and the steps that has been taken in capacity building, the institutions, and the exchange of expertise in Africa is going to help a lot of countries in Africa, because Egypt is, of course, much more modernized and much more investment, has more investment opportunities than other countries. That is why the free trade area will give Egypt another opportunity to open up with more investors who are coming to invest in Africa and to exchange more goods and services in different countries in Africa. As the African Continental Free Trade Area brings 1.2 billion people with a GDP of more than $2 trillion. So that has 43 countries who are going to have an economic integration and also a free trade and free movement of people and goods.
Yes, indeed. Ambassador Saad Shalabi, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you so much for your very precious input and for being our guest for today. And indeed, we were talking in this episode about the ranking of Egypt as the first in the foreign direct investment inflows in the year 2022, receiving a total of 11.4 billion US dollar, which is the highest amounts since the year 2017. Our dear viewers, with that, we come to the end of this edition of our program Africa Today. Till tomorrow with another crew. I'm Haiti Rabia signing. Many thanks.